Hi, it's Dr. Colson here. I don't have anybody joining me today live, but I wanted to give you some key updates on the Module 2. So first off, most of you should have given feedback for that brain research paper. Make sure that you're looking at those connections. I really want you to focus on how is the research that we have found in the brain studies, how are we using that in reading? So the information we find out about the brain, how is that helping us in education? Like, how do we make that connection to figure out, once we figure out how the brain works, how does that work when we're teaching students how to learn to read, or even if students who are struggling readers? Really make that connection. Like I said, most of you should have had your draft edited by one of your classmates looked at. Hopefully you looked at the rubric, which you can just go into the assignment and then look at that rubric. If there are any questions about that, make sure you go in and look at your own assignment within that rubric. Something else I wanted to talk to you about is kind of the information that we are finding in Module 2. So that Module 2 really gets into that how reading comes about. So how do we teach reading? How do we assess reading? What happens if a student isn't at a point where they should be? How do we implement RTI? This section gives you lots of assessments that can be used. I encourage you to look at those. Your textbook gives you those assessments. Look those up. Look at how I can use those in the classroom. This isn't a field-based course opportunity to have students in the course that we can practice, but I encourage you to take these and practice with other students. Michaela's just joining us now. So Michaela, I've kind of already started, so just you can kind of listen in. Like I said, again, in Chapter 3 really gets into that, how to teach the reading skills and exactly what assessments can I use to assess reading to find out exactly where a student is, if they need RTI. So if a student is falling behind age or grade level, at what point do I move them into RTI? Also, how do I know if a student needs to move into RTI? So make sure you pay close attention to those. When we get into Chapter 4, Chapter 4 really pushes into that advanced reading. So now we have students who they're past the beginning stages. They have some fluency. We're working on how do I get past other things when I'm working on words that the syllables don't necessarily, erasing those words that when you sound it out, it doesn't make sense. It's not the correct word. How do I get into those? Again, a lot of assessment. How do I assess and figure out where students are? Especially if I'm looking at that MTSS model, which is part of the RTI. Another thing is all those different strategies. So make sure you are looking at those strategies to figure out exactly how do I implement these skills? How do I teach these skills? And so forth. So that's kind of really where Chapter 4 comes into play. There's also a piece in Chapter 4 too to pay close attention. It really talks about getting into that spelling and how spelling should be incorporated into reading. They should be taught simultaneously. As we're learning to read, we're also learning to spell, and how they're not separate issues or separate subjects, so to speak. Another thing to think about too is how we teach reading. The days of let's give a spelling test on Friday and you just write your words 10 times each and use them in a sentence, we need to move past that. And how do we really get into teaching spelling after we've learned our phonemes, we learned the rules of words? How can that help solidify that for students? Also in Chapter 4, you will have your first group assignment. Within your group assignment, I will go ahead and if you look under groups, your group should already be formed, and you can look at that early reading. We should have 4 groups, so you'll have to determine which group you're in. I highly, highly recommend that your group meet via Zoom. You can set up your own Zoom meetings, and your group can sit there together and work on those and get those finished. I will only need one submission, so there'll sort of need to be a leader of that group who will kind of corral everyone together and figure out when you can meet and so forth. So if one can take charge in that and do that, or I can assign that if I haven't seen anybody take charge. There's also discussion within your groups that you can have as well. Like I said, there's the group page is under the course content. I'm trying to think. This is a case study, so you'll complete all cases. Make sure I kind of have the example of how the format should be done. And then, like I said, you will turn that in. And this is that early reading and teaching early reading that kind of hits the chapter 3 piece. But this, I didn't want to assign it in chapter 3 because you already had the other paper to do. So it kind of gives you a little bit of spread that time out. There's also a partner evaluation that you will need to fill out. So you'll need to fill out an evaluation on each one of your members of your group, and you will email those to me once you have those finished. So, and I will use that as another information to help base your grades on. And that kind of covers our Module 2. Michaela, did you have any questions or anything?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if you had any specific questions. I hadn't had anybody email me any questions. Any questions that have been emailed, I'll try to go back and forth and ask. Prior to you hopping on, Michaela, I was talking about I see everyone has received feedback. And then make sure you look at the rubric so you can assure yourself before you turn in your paper that you're meeting all those requirements on the rubric too.
Okay.
But that's about it. It was kind of just a quick overview of both of those modules. Chapter 3 is due by this Sunday, and then Chapter 4 will be due after fall break. It'll be on the 14th. So you got a couple of weeks to get that one done. I do kind of give you that time off if you need it for fall break. I did take that into consideration. Once you finish Module 2, then your final exam will open up. Your midterm exam. You will have 1 week to complete those. It is due on the 21st. So it will open up on the 14th, and you'll have till the 21st to finish it. And that's about it. And the Reading Horizons module will open up, and you can start on that soon. And it's due Sunday, November 4th. I think it'll open up on October 7th. Let me know if anybody has any questions.